Don't be the person with that yard, right? There are some easy ways to spruce up your landscaping, and Larry Figart is an Urban Forestry Extension Agent with IFAS. We're so excited to have you in studio.
Right.
And I'm so happy to meet you and learn a little bit more. So your specialty is trees,
Right.
and you've been on before helping us pick the right tree, of course, but now it's time to learn, how to plant it properly to ensure the well-being, of course. So why is it so important that we make sure we're planting correctly?
So planting is the first step with this new tree, and so planting it correctly, you're kind of setting the stage for the rest of its life. A lot of times we can go in a couple of years after, especially if a tree's not thriving very well, we can always kind of point back to the reason it isn't thriving is because it was planted wrong in the first place. And so by then it's a little late to do anything about it. So planting it right, you're setting the tree off on a good foundation,
good start. Yes. So you have some steps for us that we can be taking to ensure that we are planting properly. What are some of those steps?
So the first thing, especially if you're going to be digging a hole with all the underground utilities that are around, is to dial or to call 811.
Yes.
And they'll just locate, make sure that there's no utilities, no fiber optics, no anything in the ground that you can damage.
Right.
The next thing is to dig the hole wider than you need it to be. You want to loosen up that soil so those roots can go have a little free space so to roam.
Nobody likes to be crunched up, right?
Right.
Even plants.
And so, but the thing is no deeper than the size of the root ball you have. One of the worst things, and we'll talk about it in a sec, but one of the worst things you can do is plant a tree too deep. I
would have never known that.
Right. That's probably the biggest mistake. So the next thing would be, most trees in containers have circling roots.
Right.
So the thing would be, if you pull it out of the container, if it's got any circling roots, you want to cut or trim those so that they can grow out into the landscape. The next thing, this is probably the most important thing, is to not plant it too deep. And an old wise forester told me one time, plant it high and it won't die.
Okay.
So that's just easy to remember.
Yeah.
So we've always been taught that you want to plant it at the same level it was growing in the container.
Okay.
What we want to actually do is have a little bit of that root ball sticking out of the ground.
Really?
Yes. What happens is eventually it settles, so it settles at the right depth.
Okay.
So again, nothing worse than a tree too deep. And then put the soil in. Don't get in. I've seen some people, they plant a tree and then they step on it.
I think I've done that. Yep.
Well, what that does is it compacts that soil so those roots don't go out.
It's too tight in there.
But you don't want air pockets. So you kind of put the soil in and then keep watering it.
Okay.
Put a little soil in and watering it. And then that water kind of settles the soil like it ought to be.
And it'll just do it naturally.
Right,
yeah.
Right. And then always throughout the whole process, check to make sure it's not too deep. Again, harping on one little point there. And then water.
Yeah. But you don't want to overwater though, right? Or is that okay with trees?
If it's already moist, it's been raining, you can skip watering that day. But typically our sprinkler systems don't provide enough water for the tree. So you want to intentionally add water to that tree.
Good to know. Well, it has been such a pleasure, and I learned so much. I hope some of you at home did too, especially since we're in planting season and spring has sprung, of course, and going to the warmer months. So you can review this list before you tackle your yard work, of course. We'll have it on our website, firstcoastliving.net.